first of all, thank you so much for being here. I just wonder, it's an incredibly complicated thing in the first place to envision this tour of British and American actors coming together, traveling the globe. What made you say, let's add a film? Let's just add a little bit more complication.
It actually, I think, one of the first conversations that I ended up having about the idea of trying to capture this rather ambitious thing called the Bridge Project was in the first year, Sam Mendes had directed a production of The Cherry Orchard and The Winter's Tale. And we took The Winter's Tale to Epidaurus, so that incredible 14,000-seat ancient Greek theater. And so I was sitting in that theater watching Sana Rosa Beale do this play. And Sam and I were sitting together, and I was like, I have to come here. That was number one, and it was also at that moment that I thought, wow, this is such a remarkably unique thing that just doesn't happen anymore, mostly because it's too expensive. But I thought maybe there's some way that we can capture it. So then the second year of the Bridge Project happened. Ultimately, Sam and I decided that we would tackle Richard III, although there were a lot of other choices that were on the table. And then it sort of, there were more discussions, and then Jeremy Whelan, who's the first-time director of this film, came to me and said, you know, he knew we were going to be doing this production, and he thought it was a good idea that we try to document it. And so it seemed like everybody was thinking the same thing, and then I decided to pull the plug on it and pull the trigger on it, and we did it, and lo and behold, here we are.
Did you tell the cast immediately that they were going to be signing on not only to do a play, but also to do a film?
Well, it's funny, because at the time that we started shooting, in all honesty, I had no idea what it was going to be. Sort of everyone I've talked to who has worked in the documentary field says that you don't really know what it is until you have it. And that actually a film will tell you what it is in the editing process. So I kind of came to the cast and said, hi, would you mind if there was like cameras, but I don't really know what the fuck we're going to do with it? And actually the one person who was completely against it was Gemma Jones, who plays the Queen Margaret. She was like, get the camera out of my face. Like from the very beginning, and then slowly, I think because Jeremy's this lovely Irish lad, and he'd been an assistant director on a number of other productions, so he knew what it was like to sort of integrate himself into companies of actors. And after a while, sort of everybody started to sort of get used to the fact that he was there and that there was a crew there, and I completely, I mean, at a certain point, I just forgot there were cameras there. I just didn't remember. And eventually, I think people forgot. And by the middle of the tour, Gemma was lifting up her skirt, and she was telling us she wanted to see all the guys naked. So she clearly got used to it. She was fine with it.
Well, we have time for some questions from the audience. Many people are dying with us. So right here in the jeans jacket in the front.
Hi, I love you. I was wondering. Sorry. I was wondering how Sam Mendes' direction differed from film to stage.
Good question. It actually didn't. It didn't change at all. I think that one of the things that I loved about, I knew Sam's work in the theater before we worked together in American Beauty, and he knew my work in the theater. And what was fantastic about the experience of doing American Beauty was that because it was his very first film, he says, I didn't know any better but to bring the best of theater to that experience. So we actually rehearsed American Beauty like we did a play. It was truncated, so we didn't do 6 weeks. We had 2 weeks of rehearsal, which is almost unheard of in film. Normally in film, all you get is, hi, I'm playing your father. Hi, nice to meet you. Rolling! Okay. It's true. But we got a chance, the entire company of American Beauty, if you had 100 lines or you had 1 line, every single actor was a part of that rehearsal process. And Sam did it on a big soundstage, so they laid out where the sets were going to be, what they were going to look like, what the furniture was going to be. So that by the time we got to the locations or the sets, we had really worked on what we were going to be trying to go for, and that allowed us to sort of let it happen because we figured out so much. His visual style had always been extraordinary in theater. And it didn't surprise me that he was able to achieve that same kind of extraordinary ability to where you place actors, what perspective they're in, what he and Conrad Hall did in that film. He has this ability as a director to be able to describe what he's looking for to every member of every department and every actor. And then when we came to do this play, it was no different. It was just a longer process, but it was pretty much the same.
On the side here, the gentleman, please.
An excellent question. Are you planted, by the way? Were you planted? For those of you who may not know, the original series of House of Cards, the original book and then the series, the character of Francis in that British version was called Francis Urquhart. But we changed the name to Francis Underwood here, so the initials would still be FU. Was entirely based on Richard III. And that is why, for example, in House of Cards, the direct address is employed. Now, I know that many of you may think that Ferris Bueller invented direct address, but he didn't. It was actually Shakespeare. And as you see in Richard III, and in fact that was one of the great things about doing the play, was the opportunity to be able to actually turn and break that wall and be able to look directly into, can you just enjoy it? Would you just let this, just enjoy it, just take here. Sorry. So it's great actually to be able to look right in someone's eyes. That's why I did that, is I wanted to look in your eyes. I didn't want to look in the camera. I was able to look in people's eyes and actually see and experience the relationship that Richard had with the audience, but also the relationship that I was having with the viewer. It was really incredible, because what it taught me in terms of what I now get a chance to do in House of Cards is that people really dug it. Like, there was like this kind of naughty glee in their eyes. And I was like, people really like being co-conspirators. And it was really interesting with Richard. It was like people were like rooting for him, and then he killed the kids, and they were like, what the fuck are we rooting for this guy? But it actually helped me. What really helped me is because now I'm just looking down the barrel of a lens, which is quite cold. But the memory of those faces all around the world really has helped me understand how to play that direct address in House of Cards.
Any question from that side of the audience, please? The baseball cap? I'll just repeat the question in case you didn't hear it too.
Good luck, because I didn't fucking understand a thing.
But then we'll skip it. It's a question about innovation. A lot of troupes try and be really, really faithful to Shakespeare in the original staging, and obviously you're changing up a lot of conventions here. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Shakespeare is that he's elastic. I mean, I remember I was in high school, and there was a high school production of Twelfth Night Western. So they were all wearing cowboy hats and they had 6 guns, and it was awesome. It was like really cool. And you know, I've seen productions of Othello that took place in the jungles of South America. And frankly, Shakespeare is so elastic that he can even survive really bad ideas, really terrible productions, and terrible acting. But his plays are still here because the plays are remarkable, regardless of what we might mess with them and try to do with them. I think Sam wanted in this production to try to make the play feel very immediate and very accessible and not so foreign and not so scary for audiences that hear Shakespeare and kind of go, ooh. And we discovered throughout the world, particularly the young people that came out, you know, there's usually about 10 minutes where you can see them looking at you a little bit like a puzzled dog. And then slowly when the play starts to just take them and they start to understand it, they can follow it. It's not actually that difficult. And even though the language sometimes is you don't understand every word, and frankly, there's a reason for that, because Shakespeare made up about 3,000 words. Which is why when I would fuck up on stage, and trust me, I did, quite a lot, and you have to, you know, your mouth is not moving as fast as your brain is. I remember when we were in Epidaurus, just to give you an example of how easy it is to screw up. I had a line in the scene where Hastings' head is in the box. What's in the box? And I say to the mayor, and we wished your lordship here to avoid the censures of the carping world. And in front of 14,000 people I said, and we wished your lordship here to avoid the children of the starving world. Now weirdly, I ended in rhyme, in iambic pentameter. I don't know how that happened. I think that was actually the moment where you see me falling on the floor. I'd just come off stage from having said that in front of 14,000 people. But I figured that the audience just figures Shakespeare made up those words too. I mean, even if they're gibberish, he makes them up. So the Gaddafi choice, for example, actually happened because when we started rehearsals, the Arab Spring ignited. And we saw these images and thought, well, I really wanted a Gaddafi entrance, so I got the sunglasses.
All the way in the back, please. In the aisle. Yeah.
With respect to the bridge project, it is done. And it's done because it was Sam's concept, and I felt his remarkable commitment to directing 5 productions over 3 seasons was frankly enough. He was tired, and he wanted to go off and make a lot of money, so he went and made James Bond, and I'm very, very proud of him. Look, I think these kind of collaborations are a fantastic idea, and it would be great to see companies from different countries, and particularly countries that have conflict. It would be fantastic to see them come together and do work, because I believe that sometimes you can say things and do things artistically and culturally that you can't politically. And it's always just about cost and how expensive it is. This was, you know, a crazy idea to go around the world. But there are regions that I would like to see come together and do projects like this.
Well, what about on the left?
Okay. I'll try to answer that question. You know, let me put it to you this way. Are you an actress, or? No. No. She said that very quickly, by the way. What do you want to do?
I work in education.
Ah.
But I found that I have to focus on one thing at a time.
I often ask this question when I'm doing workshops with emerging talent. I'll say, how many times have you acted in the last month? Well, now I feel like a rock star. How many times have you acted in the last month? And very often I'll get the answer, well, I had 2 auditions. And I go, that's not the question I asked. How many times have you acted in the last month? And I go, well, I had 2 auditions, and then I had these auditions, so I prepared for those. And I go, okay. So what you're saying to me is that this craft that you say you have dedicated yourself to, you work on 2 times in the course of a month. Did you get either of those parts? And they go, and I go, maybe there's a correlation. Maybe when you went in for that job, you were very rusty. Maybe you only worked on something for 24 hours or 48 hours, as opposed to, you know, what's wrong with getting together with a friend of yours or a bunch of your friends and say, hey, let's read a play together on Sunday. Hey, let's do this reading. Hey, let's go and see a play. Let's you know, save a little money and go buy like a new play at the Samuel French Bookshop. There are ways in which to continue to become involved, and I always believe that work begets work, and the more you surround yourself with like-minded people, the more, I mean, there's so many times when my career was when I was starting out, where because I was in someone's face, because I was doing something, I was participating, I was doing a workshop, I was going places. I was trained in the theater, I can project. That someone saw me and recommended me for something because they saw me in something, or I was in their face. So I think sometimes it's easy to sort of sit back and wait for the phone to ring or someone else to generate something for you, but we can actually do stuff. And particularly now, because it seems to me with this incredible convergence of creativity and technology that are just merging right now. There used to be a lot of walls built up in the industry. You know, the theater industry, the film industry, television industry, very successful at building up walls to keep people out. But now there's no barriers to entry. You know, you can find so many incredibly talented people on the internet. You just have to go look for them. And we find all kinds of new platforms and new ways in which people are finding how to self-produce and self-release something. That to me is a very exciting time now, because but we in the industry have to be interested and be welcoming to those young emerging talents. So they're going to have to go off and self-produce and do it all on their own. And I do have to say one thing. Steve Van Zandt, if it weren't for your series The Sopranos that laid the foundation for some of the most fucking amazing broadcasting in the last fucking 15 years, House of Cards couldn't exist. So thank you for showing up.
So we have time for about just one more question. Okay. Right here in front, just on the floor.
So I'm sitting here because it's broken. So it's not like I want to.
Fix this theater, please. Fundraiser for the seat, please.
So I'm very curious about your experience. Okay. I'm very curious about the experience of theater and the concept and the idea of the company, and having people pour their souls into a work for months and months and years, versus the traditional filmmaking industry about the crew we've never met before, and the actors you probably have not went to rehearse with. So I was wondering, you think there's another way of making films to actually savor the spirit of theater and bring it in filmmaking?
It's a very good question. Look, the reason that films, I think, are a very unorganic experience is that the schedules are designed for 3 reasons. When is the set going to be built that you're going to shoot on? When is the location going to be available that you're going to go shoot in? And when are the other actors available? And that's why, when you look at a shooting schedule, there's no rhyme or reason to it, there's no continuity to it, it's like, and also, because of the very nature of film, in which you're filming 2-minute, 3-minute segments, for the actor, it's not our medium, it's director's medium. Yes, you can do like what Sam Mendes did, bring the best of theater into the film experience, but I think unless a movie is shooting in one location and you can schedule it that you shoot it from beginning to end like a play, I don't think it's going to change. I do think that the film business tends to isolate actors. It tends to turn them into stars and stick them up and it's all about their close-up, and it's all about them. And that's the danger, because that's when people come to movie sets and it's all about them instead of this is about us. And I think that's what you learn in theater. The thing I always try to remember in terms of the difference between theater and film and why I love theater so much is because no matter how good an actor might be in a movie, they'll never be any better. It's frozen. But in a play, you can be better tomorrow night, you can be better in 2 weeks, you can be better in 3 weeks. That journey is an incredible one, and theater is our medium, and that's why I prefer it. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. Thank you.